Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're tackling a huge question. How does a country like India feed over 1 billion people? Seriously, think about that. It's a gigantic puzzle, and it brings together science, farming, and the future of our planet.
So here's our plan. We'll start with just how big this challenge is. Then we'll get into the cool science of making better crops and farming smarter. We'll also see how animals play a part and wrap it all up by looking at what's next for our food.
All right, let's jump right in. Before we can even talk about solutions, you've got to understand just how massive the demand for food in a place like India really is.
Okay, get this. India's population is over 1 billion people, and it's still growing, so every single year we need more and more food. But, and this is the big but, the amount of land we have for farming isn't getting any bigger. So the real puzzle is, how do you get more from less?
And that right there is the key question, isn't it? It's the one thing that pushes all the science and new ideas we're about to talk about. How do you feed all those people with the same amount of land? It means we have to be super smart about how we grow everything.
You know, we've actually had some huge wins in the past. Ever hear of the Green Revolution? It massively boosted how much grain we could grow, and the White Revolution did the same thing for milk. But there was a catch. These big successes came at a cost to the environment. They really took a toll on our soil and water. And that's the problem we're facing now.
So here's the bottom line for today. Just making more food isn't enough anymore. We absolutely have to do it sustainably. That's the key word. It means growing more without wrecking the environment so that, future generations can also eat. It's all about finding that balance.
All right, so let's get into the first part of the solution. It's all about making our crops themselves better. And believe it or not, the science starts with the tiny seed way before it's even planted.
So improving our crop yields really boils down to 3 main steps. Step 1, start with a better seed. We call that crop variety improvement. Step 2, take good care of the plant as it grows, which is crop production improvement. And finally, step 3, protect it from all the things that could hurt it. That's crop protection management.
One of the coolest techniques they use is called hybridization. It's basically like creating a plant superhero. Imagine scientists playing matchmaker. They take one plant that's really good at fighting off diseases and another one that produces tons of grain. They cross them, and the goal is to get a new super plant that has both of those awesome traits.
So what are scientists actually trying to achieve with this? Well, they have a whole checklist for the perfect crop. They want a higher yield. That's more food from the same piece of land. Better quality, of course. It needs to be tough, able to resist diseases and bad weather like droughts. It should grow faster. And it should have what they call desirable agronomic traits, which is just a fancy way of saying it's the right height and shape to make it easy to harvest.
Okay, here's a question for you. Just stop and think for a second. What are all the things that could possibly ruin a farmer's crop? Well, they fall into 2 big groups. You've got your biotic factors, that's all the living stuff like insects, pests, and weeds, and then you have the abiotic factors, the non-living things like drought, too much salt in the soil, or a sudden flood. A truly improved crop has to be a fighter, ready to take on all of it.
All right, so we've got our super seed. But, that's really only half the story. A great seed needs great care. So let's look at how smarter farming practices, the way we actually take care of the crop, can make a huge difference in the final harvest.
When it comes to feeding the plants, farmers have 2 main options, manure and fertilizers. Now, they both give plants nutrients, but they work in totally different ways. Think of manure as the healthy home-cooked meal. It's organic, and it slowly builds up great soil health over time. Fertilizers, on the other hand, are like a high-powered energy drink. You get a quick burst of specific nutrients, like nitrogen and potassium. But if you use too much, it can cause some serious problems, like water pollution. So finding that perfect balance is key.
And it's not always just about quantity, about getting more of something. Take this sunflower, for example. For an oilseed crop like this, the real win isn't just getting more seeds. It's getting more high-quality oil from each seed. See the difference? That's a perfect example of how improving the quality of our food is just as important.
Now here's a really clever strategy farmers use. It's called mixed cropping. The best way to think about it is like an insurance policy for your field. Instead of putting all your eggs in one basket and planting just one crop, you plant 2 or more together, like wheat and gram. That way, if some pest comes along and totally destroys the wheat, you haven't lost everything. You still have the gram crop. It's a super simple but effective way to minimize risk.
And taking that idea one step further, we have something called intercropping. This is a bit more organized.
Instead of just mixing the seeds, you plant 2 or more crops in a definite pattern, like 1 row of soybean, then 1 row of maize, and so on. The magic here is that you choose plants that need different things from the soil, so they're not fighting each other for nutrients. It's all about making the absolute most of every inch of soil.
Okay, but let's be real, food isn't just about plants, right? Animals are a huge part of the equation, and that's where animal husbandry comes in. It's this whole other side of farming that's absolutely critical for things like milk, eggs, meat, and, for many farmers, their income. So let's dive into that.
Now, animal husbandry isn't just, letting a few cows wander around a field. It's a real science. We're talking about carefully managing what the animals eat so they're healthy and productive. It's about breeding, choosing the best animals to produce even better offspring. And a huge part is disease control. The goal is to keep the livestock healthy, whether it's cattle for milk, chickens for eggs, or fish in a pond.
Speaking of fish, they're a massive source of protein for so many people, and we basically get them in 2 main ways. First, there's what you probably picture, capture fishing. That's heading out into the wild, oceans, rivers, and catching them. But with growing demand, we have another method that's becoming more and more important, culture fishery, or what you might know as aquaculture. This is literally fish farming, raising fish in controlled environments like ponds or tanks.
And it's not always about big animals or huge operations. Even something like beekeeping, the technical term is apiculture, plays a really important role. Farmers can get into it without a massive investment, and it provides valuable products like honey and wax. It's a great way for them to earn some extra income.
Okay, so we've talked about better seeds, smarter farming techniques, and the whole animal side of things. Now let's put it all together. What does the future of feeding everyone actually look like?
Really, the path forward seems to be something called integrated farming systems. This is where everything on the farm works together. It's a system where nothing is wasted. For example, a farmer might raise livestock right alongside their crops. The animal waste becomes natural fertilizer for the plants, and parts of the crops can be used to feed the animals. It's this beautiful, efficient, self-sustaining cycle. And so, that brings us to the big takeaway question, doesn't it? We have all these amazing scientific tools in our toolbox, from hybridization and intercropping to fully integrated farms. The technology is there. The real challenge now is to use these tools wisely and on a large scale. If we can do that, we can absolutely work towards a future where there's enough food for everyone, and do it in a way that takes care of our planet for the next billion people and all the generations to come.